Carlos, a hard-working software engineer, is about to propose to his girlfriend of 3 years, Melissa. He's saved for months, for the perfect ring, and planned a romantic weekend. While picking up dinner, he receives a text from her that was clearly meant for her mother. "Don't worry, once he pays off my student loans, I'll leave." His world stops. Before I continue this devastating story of betrayal and unexpected redemption, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and subscribe if you want more real-life stories like this one. I am Carlos Rodriguez, a 32-year-old software engineer living in Seattle. I grew up watching my immigrant parents work themselves to the bone to create opportunities for my sister and me. My dad worked 2 jobs most of my childhood, and my mom cleaned houses while learning English at night. Their sacrifice taught me the value of hard work and perseverance, values that shaped who I became. After graduating with my computer science degree, I landed a job at a growing tech company. I started in an entry-level position and worked my way up, eventually becoming a senior developer. I was proud of what I had accomplished, especially considering where I started. My parents were even prouder, seeing their sacrifices pay off in my success. 3 years ago, my life changed when I attended a charity fundraiser for education initiatives in underserved communities. That is where I met Melissa Turner. She was stunning with her bright blue eyes and warm smile. But what truly captivated me was her intelligence and passion. She was in her final year of law school, hoping to work in public interest law. When she spoke about wanting to help disadvantaged communities access legal resources, I was instantly drawn to her. We exchanged numbers that night, and within a week, I asked her out for coffee. That coffee date turned into dinner, which turned into weekend hiking trips and museum visits. Soon we were spending most of our free time together. I introduced her to my family about 6 months in, and they welcomed her with open arms. My mother particularly took to her, often inviting her over to learn family recipes. My younger sister, Sophia, looked up to Melissa like the big sister she never had. When Melissa graduated from law school, I was there cheering her on. I knew she was worried about her future, particularly the mountain of student loan debt she had accumulated. Law school had cost her nearly $90,000, and she confided in me that the weight of that debt kept her up at night. I reassured her that she would find a way to manage it, and I would support her however I could. That support soon became financial, as well as emotional. When she struggled to find a position at a public interest firm, she took a lower-paying job at a small practice. I started helping with some of her loan payments just to ease her burden. It was not a big deal to me. I was doing well at my job, and I wanted to help the woman I loved. A year ago, we decided to move in together. We found a nice 2-bedroom apartment closer to both our workplaces. Living together felt natural, like the next logical step in our relationship. We decorated our place with photos of our trips together and items from my cultural heritage. We talked about marriage, children, and the future we would build together. I believed we were on the same page, working toward the same goals. In recent months, I had noticed some subtle changes in Melissa's behavior. She became more protective of her phone, often taking calls in another room. She was less affectionate, and sometimes seemed distracted when we were together. I chalked it up to stress from her job and the continuing pressure of her student loans. I told myself that all couples go through phases, and this was just a temporary rough patch. Despite these small concerns, I was ready to take the next step. For our 3rd anniversary, I planned to propose. I spent months saving for the perfect ring, a beautiful diamond set in white gold, that I knew would look stunning on her hand. I planned a weekend getaway to the Oregon coast where we had taken our first vacation together. I had arranged for a private dinner on the beach where I would ask her to be my wife. The day before our trip, I left work early to pick up takeout from our favorite restaurant. That is when everything changed. As I waited for our order, my phone buzzed with a message from Melissa, but it was clearly not meant for me. "Don't worry, Mom. Once he pays off my student loans, I will leave. Just another year or so, and I will be free and clear." I stared at my screen, unable to process what I was reading. In that moment, my entire world collapsed around me. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, just staring at that message. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I read it over and over, hoping somehow the words would rearrange themselves into something less devastating. But they remained unchanged, a digital knife twisting in my chest. I did not respond right away. I needed time to think, to process what this meant. Was our entire relationship a lie? Had she been using me from the beginning? All those nights I held her while she cried about her financial stress. All those times she told me she loved me, Were they all part of some calculated plan? While I sat there numb with shock, more messages came through from her. Normal messages. Are you picking up dinner? Should I start preheating the oven? And then Carlos, everything okay? She had no idea what she had done, that she had accidentally pulled back the curtain on her true intentions. I finally drove home my mind, racing through every moment of our relationship, reinterpreting everything in this new terrible light. When I walked through our apartment door, she greeted me with a smile that now seemed sinister. There you are. I was getting worried, she said, moving to kiss me. I stepped back and held up my phone. You sent me this by mistake, I said, my voice surprisingly calm despite the storm raging inside me. I think you meant to send it to your mom. The color drained from her face as she took the phone and read the message. For a moment she tried to deny it. That is not what it looks like, she stammered. You are misunderstanding. Then explain it to me, I said. Explain how I am misunderstanding you planning to leave me once I pay off your loans. Her denial crumbled quickly. Tears filled her eyes, but I no longer trusted them. I am sorry, she whispered. I never meant for you to find out like this. What followed was a confession that shattered any lingering doubts. She admitted she had been using me, that our relationship had been part of her plan to get out of debt. She had $87,000 in student loans when we met, and she saw in me a potential solution to her problems. It was not supposed to be like this, she said. I was just going to date you for a little while, get some help with my loans. But then things got serious and it became harder to leave. But not impossible, I said bitterly. She had the audacity to look hurt. You have to understand my position. I was drowning in debt. What would you have done? Not used someone for years, not pretended to love them. I was shouting now, the initial shock giving way to rage. Not moved in with them and talked about marriage while planning my escape. That is when she dropped another bombshell. She had been seeing someone else, an old flame from a wealthy family. He had been waiting for her for when she was free of her debt and me. Get out, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Pack your things and get out of my apartment tonight. She tried to argue, saying she had nowhere to go, but I was beyond caring. I stood in the living room while she hastily packed a suitcase, crying the entire time. Before she left, she tried one last time. Carlos, we can work this out. I do care about you. Not enough to be honest, I replied, holding the door open. Not enough to love me for who I am rather than what I could give you. After she left, I collapsed on our couch, our formerly shared couch, and broke down. The pain was physical, crushing my chest and making it hard to breathe. I called in sick to work the next day, and the day after that. I could not eat or sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, heard her voice telling me she loved me. Melissa called and texted constantly over the next few days, her messages vacillating between tearful apologies and angry accusations. I was being unreasonable, she said. I was throwing away 3 years over one mistake. She even suggested I had driven her to this by being so focused on my career. I blocked her number. My best friend Jake came over after I had been holed up for 3 days. He found me unshowered, surrounded by takeout containers, staring blankly at a television that was not even turned on. Dude, he said, taking in the scene. What the hell happened? I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When I finished, he shook his head. I always thought there was something off about her, but this is beyond anything I imagined. Jake stayed with me that night, made sure I ate something, and convinced me to take a shower. His presence was a lifeline in my darkest moment. You will get through this, he promised. It will hurt like hell for a while, but you will come out stronger. I finally called my parents the next day. I had been avoiding it, not wanting to admit how badly I had been duped. My father listened in silence as I recounted what had happened. When I finished, his quiet anger was palpable even through the phone. She will never set foot in our home again, he declared. My mother was more concerned about me. Come home for a while, she urged. Let us take care of you. Over the following days, more painful revelations emerged. I learned Melissa had borrowed money from my sister for a work emergency that she never repaid. She had even approached my uncle about a temporary loan for a car repair. It seemed her scheme extended to my entire family. The more I discovered, the more I realized this was not a recent development or a momentary lapse in judgment. She had been planning this for at least a year, possibly from the very beginning of our relationship. I found notes in her desk drawer about my salary and promotion schedule. She had it all mapped out, how long it would take me to pay off her debt if I continued advancing in my career. The betrayal infected every memory. Our first kiss, the first time she said I love you, the weekend trips we took, the family holidays we shared, all of it was tainted. I questioned everything, including my own judgment. How had I been so blind? Were there signs I had missed? Or had she simply been that good at deception? My self-worth plummeted. If I could be so thoroughly fooled by someone I thought loved me, what did that say about me? What did it say about my ability to judge character, to trust my own instincts? The foundation of my identity felt shattered, and I had no idea how to begin rebuilding it. The weeks after Melissa left were the darkest of my life. I took an extended leave from work, unable to focus on coding when my mind was constantly replaying every moment of our relationship. I stopped returning calls from friends, ignored invitations, and spent most days just staring at the walls of my apartment, which still held traces of her despite my efforts to remove them. My downward spiral might have continued indefinitely, if not for my sister Sophia. 3 weeks after the breakup, she showed up at my door, unannounced, suitcase in hand. "I am staying for the weekend," she announced, pushing past me. "And we are getting you out of this apartment." Despite my protests, she dragged me to a local park, forcing me to walk in the fresh air. "You look like hell," she said bluntly, "and you cannot let her destroy you like this." "I do not even know who I am anymore," I admitted. Everything I thought was real was a lie. "Not everything," Sophia insisted. "Your family loves you. Your friends love you. Your worth is not determined by one person who was too selfish to see how lucky she was to have you." Slowly, I began to emerge from my isolation. I returned to work, though my performance was far from my best. I started joining Jake for weekly basketball games again, finding that physical exertion helped clear my head. But just as I was beginning to find my footing, a new blow came. A mutual friend called to ask if what Melissa was saying about me was true. Apparently, she had been telling people I had been financially controlling, that I had demanded she stay with me in exchange for help with her loans. She painted herself as the victim who had finally escaped a toxic relationship. I was stunned by this new betrayal. "None of that is true," I told my friend. "She sent me a text meant for her mother admitting she was using me." "I thought it sounded off," he said, "but she has been very convincing. She has even been crying to some of our friends." This news sent me spiraling again. Not only had she used me, but now she was actively working to damage my reputation. I felt powerless against her, lies unsure how to defend myself, without seeming like I was the one being vindictive. A few days later, I ran into Ashley, Melissa's former roommate from law school, at a coffee shop. When she spotted me, I expected her to glare or ignore me based on whatever stories Melissa had spread. Instead, she came directly to my table. "I heard what happened," she said. "And I believe you. Melissa did the same thing to her ex before you." According to Ashley, Melissa had dated a medical student for a year and a half, convincing him to help with her undergraduate loans before suddenly breaking things off once they were paid. "She always talked about finding a guy with potential," Ashley explained. "Someone who could help her get ahead." I stopped being friends with her when I realized what she was doing. I was not the first. Somehow that knowledge was both devastating and oddly comforting. It was not something wrong with me that made Melissa use me. It was her pattern, her character flaw. As Ashley and I talked, she revealed more about Melissa's calculated approach to relationships, how she would research men's careers and family backgrounds before deciding whether they were worth pursuing. "She called it being practical," Ashley said. "I called it being predatory." Armed with this new information, I began to see my relationship with Melissa more clearly. The times she had seemed most interested in me coincided with my promotions or bonuses. Her affection often increased when I helped with her financial burdens. The pattern was so obvious in retrospect that I felt foolish for missing it. Just as I was processing this new perspective, the situation escalated dramatically. About 5 weeks after our breakup, I was at my parents' house for Sunday dinner, a family tradition I had recently resumed attending. My mother had made my favorite dishes, and for the first time in weeks, I found myself genuinely enjoying a meal. The doorbell rang just as we were finishing dinner. My father went to answer it, and the table conversation continued until we heard his voice unnaturally calm, but with an edge I recognized from childhood, the tone that meant he was furious but controlling it. "I think you should leave now," he was saying. "You are not welcome here." I rose from the table and moved toward the entryway, my sister and mother following behind me. There, standing on our porch, was Melissa. She looked thinner than when I had last seen her, her eyes red-rimmed as if she had been crying. "Carlos," she said when she spotted me. "Please, I need to talk to you." My father stood between us, his posture protective. "She was just leaving," he said firmly. But Melissa was persistent. 5 minutes, she pleaded. Just give me 5 minutes to explain. What happened next shocked everyone, especially Melissa. My father reached into his pocket and pulled out several sheets of paper. Are you here to explain this? He asked, holding them up. The loan applications you forged Carlos's signature on, or perhaps the credit card you opened in his name. Her face went pale. I do not know what you are talking about, she stammered. We have been gathering evidence, my father continued, his voice steady. We know about the previous men you have used. We know about the money you borrowed from family members under false pretenses. We know everything, Melissa. I stepped forward, finding my voice and my strength in that moment. You did not just betray me, I said. You betrayed my entire family who welcomed you, trusted you, loved you. Tears spilled down Melissa's cheeks, but this time I saw them for what they were, a manipulative tool rather than genuine emotion. You do not understand, she said. My parents never had money. I was desperate when I met you. I never had the advantages you did. So that gives you the right to use people, I asked. To lie and manipulate and steal, I did love you, she insisted. Maybe not at first, but I grew to care for you. Just not enough to be honest, I replied. Not enough to build something real with me instead of planning your exit strategy. Something in my tone must have registered with her because her approach suddenly changed. The tears stopped, and her expression hardened. You would never have understood the pressure I was under, she said. Do you have any idea what it is like to be drowning in debt with no way out? I would have helped you because I loved you, I said. Not because you tricked me into it. There is a difference. What do you want me to say, she demanded. That I am sorry. Fine, I am sorry. But you are not innocent either, Carlos. You liked playing the savior, the successful guy helping his struggling girlfriend. It made you feel good about yourself. Her words were designed to wound, to shift blame, but they no longer had power over me. I am not your stepping stone, I said firmly. I am not your financial plan. I am a person who deserved honesty and respect, neither of which you were capable of giving. She must have realized her usual tactics were not working because she played her final card, the one I later learned she had used successfully on others. I cannot live like this, she said, her voice breaking. The guilt is too much. Sometimes I think everyone would be better off if I just ended it all. In the past, a threat like that would have sent me rushing to comfort her, to reassure her. Not anymore. If you are having those thoughts, you should speak to a professional, I said calmly. But you will not manipulate me with threats. My father had heard enough. He pulled out his phone. I am calling your parents right now, he said. They should know what their daughter has been doing. Melissa lunged for his phone. No, you cannot. But it was too late. My father had already dialed, and seconds later was introducing himself to Melissa's mother. Right there on our porch, with Melissa frantically trying to interrupt, my father calmly explained everything, including the text message that had exposed her plans. The final blow came when he put the phone on speaker, and we all heard Melissa's mother sigh deeply. I was afraid of this, she said. It is not the first time. In that moment, Melissa's entire scheme unraveled publicly. She stood there exposed not just to me, but to both our families. The confident manipulator was gone, replaced by someone small and desperate. Without another word, she turned and fled down the walkway to her car. As we watched her drive away, I felt something unexpected relief. For weeks, I had carried the weight of her betrayal, questioning my worth and my judgment. But standing there with my family, having finally confronted her lies, I felt the burden begin to lift. I was stronger than I had believed, and I deserved far better than what she had offered. The months following that confrontation were a period of slow but steady healing. With the truth fully exposed, I could finally begin to move forward. I focused first on rebuilding my connections with friends and family, the support system I had neglected during the darkest days after the breakup. My parents were my strongest advocates. They helped me check my credit reports and financial accounts, ensuring Melissa had not done more damage than we already knew about. My father, always protective, insisted I file a police report about the forged signatures, though I was hesitant to escalate things further. It is not about revenge, he explained. It is about protecting yourself and possibly others. People like her rarely stop after one victim. I also began seeing a therapist, something I had never considered before. Dr. Ramirez helped me work through my trust issues and rebuild my self-confidence. What happened to you was not a reflection of your worth, she reminded me in our sessions. It was a reflection of her character, not yours. At work, I threw myself into a challenging new project, designing a security system for a major client. The focus required helped keep my mind off my personal troubles, and the successful completion earned me a promotion I had been working toward for over a year. The professional achievement came at a perfect time, reminding me that one area of my life where I had always been confident remained strong. During a routine check of my accounts, my bank flagged some unusual activity from months earlier. Working with their fraud department, I discovered Melissa had made several transfers from our joint account to her personal account on days when larger deposits from my company had cleared. The amounts were carefully calculated to stay under typical alert thresholds, revealing just how methodical her deception had been. My lawyer advised me on how to address these financial discrepancies, and we were able to recover some of the money. More importantly, we ensured all accounts were secured against future attempts. The process was draining, but necessary for my financial and emotional protection. What surprised me most during this time was the support that emerged from unexpected places. Colleagues I had always been friendly with, but not particularly close to, stepped forward with encouragement. Several admitted they had seen red flags in Melissa's behavior that they had not felt comfortable mentioning when we were together. She always asked very detailed questions about your salary and promotion schedule, my team leader confided. At company events, she seemed more interested in networking with executives than spending time with you. It seemed off. But who wants to be the person questioning someone else's relationship? Their observations helped me recognize the warning signs I had missed, not to dwell on my mistakes, but to better protect myself in the future. I began to develop a new perspective on relationships, understanding that true connection is built on mutual respect and honesty, not on what one person can provide for the other. 6 months after our breakup, I received an email from Melissa requesting a meeting. My initial instinct was to ignore it, but Dr. Ramirez suggested that a controlled final conversation might provide closure. We met at a public cafe with Jake sitting at a nearby table as moral support. Melissa looked different, less polished than I remembered her. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her eyes not quite meeting mine. I wanted to apologize in person properly this time. I listened as she explained that she had started therapy after our confrontation, that she was working to understand her pattern of using people. "What I did to you was inexcusable," she admitted. I convinced myself it was justified because of my circumstances, but that was just a way to avoid taking responsibility for my actions. I appreciated her apology, but maintained my emotional distance. Looking at her across the table, I realized something profound. I could now see her clearly, without the distortion of what I had wanted her to be. She was neither the perfect partner I had imagined, nor the heartless villain of the immediate aftermath. She was a flawed person who had made terrible choices, and while I could forgive her for my own peace of mind, I would never allow her back into my life. "I wish you well," I told her as we parted. "I hope you find whatever it is you are looking for without hurting anyone else along the way." My relationship with my family grew even stronger through this ordeal. My sister Sophia, who had been so instrumental in pulling me out of my depression, became my closest confidant. My parents, who had welcomed Melissa into their home only to have their trust betrayed as well, showed me what unconditional love truly looks like. About 8 months after the breakup, I decided to give back in a way that felt meaningful. I began volunteering at a financial literacy program at the community center, where my mother taught English classes. I helped young adults understand credit debt and how to protect themselves financially. It was healing to transform my painful experience into something that could benefit others. During one of these workshops, I ran into Maria, a friend from college I had lost touch with. She was now a teacher at a local school, bringing her students to learn about managing money. We reconnected over coffee, reminiscing about our university days and catching up on the years between. There was an ease to our conversation that felt refreshing after the complexity of my relationship with Melissa. We made plans to meet again just as friends, but I found myself looking forward to it with a hopefulness I had not felt in a long time. The engagement ring I had purchased for Melissa had sat in my dresser drawer for months, a painful reminder of shattered dreams. Finally, I returned it to the jeweler, using the refund to book a trip to visit my grandparents in their small hometown in New Mexico. Sitting on their porch, listening to their stories of 63 years of marriage, built on respect and partnership, I gained perspective on what true love actually entails. "It is never perfect," my grandfather told me, "but it is always honest. Without honesty, you have nothing." As the 1-year mark of my breakup approached, I realized how far I had come. The pain had not disappeared entirely, but it had transformed into something valuable, a hard-won wisdom about relationships and self-worth. I understood now that love should not deplete you or leave you questioning your value. Real love adds to your life. It does not scheme to take from it. The person I had become through this journey was stronger, more discerning, but not closed off to possibility. I had learned to trust my instincts again, to recognize when something felt wrong rather than rationalizing it away. Most importantly, I had learned that my worth was not tied to what I could provide for someone else financially or otherwise. Life continues to unfold in unexpected ways. I still have moments of doubt days, when trust seems like too great a risk. But I also have a deeper understanding of myself and what I truly want from relationships. I am building a life that feels authentic and meaningful, surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not what I can give them. If you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, completely know that the path forward exists, even when you cannot see it through your pain. The journey back to yourself is not quick or easy, but it leads to a place of genuine strength and wisdom that nothing can take from you. True connections, I have learned, are built slowly on foundations of honesty, respect, and mutual growth, not on calculation and convenience. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you thought truly loved you? How did you rebuild your trust afterward? Share your stories in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences that remind us we are never alone in our struggles. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most authentic beginnings.